It went, yeah, it went very quickly. Yeah.
Designed by a gentleman named Arthur Young. They built over 8,000 airplanes. Down, 4 in the circuit area. As you can see, as they string past very, very slowly. Very practical steel tube with fuselage, very easily accessible. Access the tail rotor drive shaft. The engine is actually mounted vertically just behind the cockpit here. You see those 2 fuel tanks on the side. It can be fitted with the skids that you see here, or it can also be fitted with flaps. The US military designation H-13H for helicopter. Widely used. There are 24 different civil variants and 27 military variants of the basic design, and used by 36 military airlines. Yesterday, 7 today. They must be breeding wherever they're roosting for the evening. Very, very simple helicopter to operate. Late 1946 went into service with the US Air Force, and it later became the first civilian helicopter certified for non-military use. It's been around for a very, very long time. That particular helicopter perhaps more familiar with the role of drag. Can actually carry 2 litters on either side for evacuations, medical. Bit of a rough ride, but on the litters. Mobile alarm essentially a hospital use. Over 200 of these H-13s were pursued, were ordered by the UK Army. They had to meet the British specification 50 were originally built by Augusta in Italy, and then the remaining 150 by Wester. That was part of the licensed agreements to manufacture supporting aircraft. The first flight of the British aircraft was March 1965. Served with the US Army in Vietnam until 1966, when it was replaced by the turbine Hughes Cleves. Generally a pilot and 2 passengers, but the later model Bell 47J had an enclosed cockpit with seat 4. Tribute today by these aircraft, because Loretta Sweet, who passed away yesterday, is a great part of that MASH TV series.
We'll let you see what it is.
As he pulls up at 5G, he converts his speed into height to perform his first manoeuvre, the hammerhead. Flight Lieutenant Bob Hughes was born in Carmarthen, South Wales, and started his flying career in the Royal Air Force in 1989, flying the Queen of the Skies, the VC-10, out of RAF Bryce Norton. He then became a search and rescue pilot on the Sea King. Bob's now pushing negative 2G, levelling the aircraft upside down for an inverted pass. This is Bob's second year with the tutu display. He's operating at a base height of 300 feet, except for his two final passes at just 200 feet. When not displaying, Bob is a qualified flying instructor, or QFI, on 115 Squadron based at RAF Wittering, where he trains frontline pilots into fellow QFIs. During his very varied career, Bob has amassed over 8,000 hours on 15 different aircraft types. This is almost a full year in the air. After this half Cuban, Bob will enter the 4-point roll. It's a great camera opportunity. The Tutor has a top speed of 212 miles an hour, 185 knots, and this can achieve maximum positive 6G. Bob now rolls 90 degrees and pointing straight up before completing a stall turn at 0 airspeed. The two 90-degree turns allow Bob to continue in the same direction. The Tutor is operated by No. 6 Flying Training School in partnership with Babcock International, primarily flying University Air Squadron students and RAF Air Cadets. There are 13 air experience flights across the UK and offer flights to up to 20,000 cadets each year. This could be you if you're between 13 and 20 years old. 50 air cadets each year are now being taught to fly the Tutor up to solo standard. Unlike the last stall turn, this one is flown conventionally, exiting in the opposite direction to the entry. And after completing this turn, Bob will enter the slow roll. This unique yellow and black Tutor was originally a trial paint scheme to provide a high contrast effect, but has now become a favourite of airships, so we decided to keep it. It's the only one painted this way.
Reds 8 and 9, roll go as Reds 8 and 9 roll around the rest of the formation as Red 1 brings them towards us. But watch for the colour change as Red 1 brings them down the line. Heart. And up to your far right hand side you can see Red 8 pitching in, who will spear the heart. And from Corporal Matt Harris, who's Circus 5 this year, he'd like to say a big hello to baby Isabel, Beth and Richard. Love you lots from Uncle Matt Harris. And also wish a happy birthday to Edward, who is 14 next week, from all of your family. Let's give a massive round of applause to Cinco.
Goes, and we'll see how beautifully these aircraft fly, but also how quickly and agile it is. She'll now climb.
Heard the term relating to aerobatics as a stall turn. That stall is not like in a car when the engine stops. It's basically it's no longer delivering lift.
And then straighten up and hop, skip and a jump and she'll be down.
Lovely landing out there because it's not the smoothest surface.
The grass is never easy, although they mow the grass here and they roll it for us for the runway. It's never easy. If you can imagine landing on your front lawn, definitely you'd have trouble on mine.
Round of applause. See that wonderful elliptical wing there, very reminiscent of the Spitfire. Nice side slip manoeuvre there. Basically crossing the controls a bit to use the fuselage of the aircraft for aerodynamic braking. Red 10, Squadron Leader Graham Muscat, heading off for his next commentary this afternoon. Aerobatic performance at an air show at Old Sarah a number of years ago now. See? Land and wave at the same time.
You can see the aircraft's only got one main wheel, and then the outriggers, there's tiny little wheels on the end of the wing. So this is very much like a glider, but with an extra wheel caps.
Snap rolls.
So Rich himself was a former tornado fighter pilot from the Air Force, and then became an aircraft pilot. He's been flying competition aerobatics for around 30 years, and for the last decade he's been one of the leading airshow pilots in the UK. Before the display, Rich was literally ratchet strapped into the aircraft to make sure he's completely safe and secure during the extreme G forces that he's going to encounter today, and you can see that happening already.
Very different shape to the one that Lauren was flying on.
This looks to me like a rolling circle where you're freely pushed to the side of the cockpit as you're flying. It's a curious...
They deliver about 700 ratio of greater than 100. So vertical maneuvers are not a problem. It's north, left and right by 2 speed lines. November 1973, the aircraft formally joined the Battle of Britain flight, later renamed the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and they actually obtained the mid-upper turret that they needed to complete the restoration from Argentina. This is so many Robert Taylor photos.
Teams are also spending the whole year in celebration of the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and there'll be celebration events and commemorative events taking place across the country throughout the year.
Nice tire chase here by the Spitfires. As Neil pointed out yesterday, one with the traditional elliptical wing, one with the tip wings. Memorial flight. Happy birthday to the Lancaster. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they can see you. Give them a big wave. Spitfires today flown by Squadron Leader Giles Croft and Flight Lieutenant Andy Priest.
It's amazing. Pete, tell us how this gyrocopter flies.
Well, you would think that rotor is actually powered. There is a slight clutch that you can start to turn, but that is free turn, and that is what water gyro is. It's powered by a 100 to a 115 horsepower Rotax engine or a turbocharged Rotax. It's quite diminutive actually. The fuselage itself is only about 16 feet long, but the rotor diameter is just
To show, I love this.
Britain first. And again, just taxiing along, slight touch on the throttle here and there, and kicking along with his feet. Pete Davis, ladies and gentlemen.
You can see how tiny it is. Single-seat sports racing aircraft designed in the United States in 1951 for the sole purpose of flying in Formula One air races, Lindsay. And absolutely loves what he does. He's another pilot that describes flying as his sanctuary.
An empty weight of minimum 500
I'm beginning to think that yellow is definitely a good colour at Radley Hall. And anyone with a camera is going to get a real treat today, be able to take some photographs of this really enormous helicopter.
Crew today, Captain is Andrew Whitey Whitehouse. He is the owner of the guys Staker to operate and maintain. Now this Sea King is a medium lift utility anti-submarine search and rescue airborne and transport. So a real multi-role helicopter.
Please put your hands in the air, ladies and gentlemen. You can see the front door is opened and the crew will be looking out at you and they will be able to see you and hopefully if you'll wave, they might wave back.
That is absolutely cavernous inside. Lots of components, including the engine, the anti-submarine warfare systems, and the fully computerised flight control system. It's also designed for possible as well because the UK might stem from the British requirement that the helicopter will be more independent of operations, whereas the US Sikorsky's are more under the control of the aerobatic.
Spitfires often enabling them to avoid enemy attentions.
It does have a considerable At some stage there was a Mark 19 in the early 50s that actually did a weather flight up to around Houston to take atmospheric samples. Receives. The jet promised. It's incredible to think that high off the ground, because of the use of the piston engine propests, main undercarriage jets. So they put that I suppose you could call it. Design of the things it benefited considerably by
Straight into it. It's got a great power to weight ratio, made out of light plywood and balsa wood, the fuselage, the wings and the tail. Now it's going to taxi along the runway and turn into wind and then get airborne. Steve has made attachments on the wingtips to take smoke canisters, so we'll be able to see. There we go, starting to roll, and airborne in just a few feet. Straight up and straight into a roll. In fact, and another roll, because what Steve is flying is a manoeuvre known as a rolling circle, where the aircraft traces the shape of a circle over the ground while rolling as it does so. A very difficult manoeuvre to do even when you're in the cockpit, let alone when you're controlling it from the ground, trying to work out which way is right, which is left, which is up and which is down. But Steve accomplished that very well. Straight up for the classic loop-to-loop. That's what it looks like, but he's actually performing a lower half of a vertical 8, describing the number 8 there in the sky. Half Cuban is a horizontal 8, as it's also known. So you don't often see vertical 8s displayed. Straight up into the vertical, and there's a very nice stall turn, as you heard Ando describing earlier. In case you missed it, a stall turn, the engine keeps going, but it's the wing that has stalled, it's no longer generating. The Yak 54 is a 2-seat training aircraft, and you'll see that if you get up close to this model, there is a pilot figure inside it, plus a spare seat as well. And previously at the Midlands Air Festival, Steve has flown Geoffrey the giraffe in that spare seat. Now a nice knife edge pass. Look at that, absolutely stationary. I remember seeing this done with a full-size aircraft at the Farnborough International Air Show one year, and that was equally impressive. There's the smoke on, and now opening the throttle to power away, just a few feet from the ground. It's not quite in the class of Peter Davis with his Calidus autogyro, but not far off it. There we go, heel boy, heel. There he is, back to his owner.
The R4D was the designation given to the DC-3 100th anniversary of engine manufacturer Pratt & Whitney and the 250th anniversary of the United States Navy. As part of this mission, the aircraft has carried over rubbings from the memorial headstones. Powered by the Pratt & Whitney R1830 or a Wright Cyclone, both around 1200 horsepower. This aircraft was prolific in its operations during the Second World War.
And the tiny little mono. Now this Stomp has only ever had 3 owners, and it is a glorious example of this Belgian biplane, which is very much the sister of the UK's Tiger Moth. And followed closely by Captain Bruce in the Steam Skybolt. Which is a slightly larger sister to the Pitts that we've seen flying earlier today. It's a slightly larger model.
Very disparate engine capacities here. You're looking there at Ben Klein Mono, normally 40 horsepower basic VW engine. Some have a staggering 60 horsepower VW engine. And then about 145 horsepower in the Stomp, up to 180 in the Steam Skybolt. It reminds me very much of the Chiltern. I think they were all designed with the same thing in mind. A little bit of crazy lines up there. So that's what the Armstrong has been renowned for. Everybody everybody trying to get a better performance, wow the crowds a little bit more with daring-do, as you mentioned.
And what I loved about the Barnstormers in the 1950s, they very much brought whatever they could together to create theatre to the crowds. And lots of entertainment, the different types of aircraft flying in different ways. My dad used to drop the odd flower bomb, he used to fly under the blow poles and do an amazing crazy flying display. But also, the Stomp being such an aerobatic aircraft, which formed very much part of display teams through the 1970s. And the Skybolt, again, a world class, a little bit blustery.
That is a lovely looking Stomp. It's an aircraft to fly at the local airfield. Because as soon as they set themselves up for landing, the whole airfield disappears and they're using their peripheral vision to land.
Indeed, flown quite a lot in the 2-seat extra. Again, a self-loading baggage. We have a display pilot here this weekend, John Taylor, who I used to fly with when he was with the Ultimate High team based down at Goodwood. And we took the aircraft to air shows to help promote the World Aerobatic Championships, where an aircraft just like the one Chris is flying today would have been performing those high-performance gyroscopic aerobatics at unlimited world-class levels. And the last one that I was involved with was actually at Silverstone.
Welded steel tube fuselage like many aircraft with a carbon composite wing, gives it unbelievable strength. Symmetrical airfoil to give equal lift either inverted or upright flight.
Over end. Absolutely incredible. Chris at all times in complete control of what he's doing. We talked about that arresty sequence being written inside the cockpit of the airplane, and it will be there in front of him telling, just as a guidance of what he's doing next. But if you think you want to do this yourself, you can indeed pop down to see the Ultimate High team down at Goodwood, and they have a flight profile called the Utter Nutter, where you can take on some of the 7 high performance manoeuvres, that beautiful slow roll, which include the Polaroid, the Avalanche, the Longchevac, all named pretty much after competition pilots who were always trying to come up with new manoeuvres.
That Longchevac is crazy, I believe, but that is the name for the headache you get when you're being drinking too much Slivovitz.
I think so indeed, and then they put that into an aerobatic manoeuvre, and that's what your head feels like in the morning.
Tumbles and goes in each and every direction.
Chris is part of a team called Global Stars, and they
Tim, entering his display sequence now. Silence aircraft, manufactured in Germany. Now this machine has got quite some performance, even though it's powered by 85 horsepower Jabiru engine. Single-seat aerobatic, tail whirl, amateur built, kit or planned aircraft, planned-built aircraft, and can be fitted with either the fixed or retractable converter. Tim just coming in now in the Twister. Lovely looking aeroplane. Beautiful platform of the aircraft there. Especially the principal fighter of the US Air Force in the Korean War, entering combat in December 1953.
it the engine. It's a bigger version of the one that's the Stearman, but a massive radial engine. Raw, rasping noise that you can hear.
Very simple designation the Americans gave to their engines, whereas here, for example, if you said they didn't know what a Rolls-Royce Merlin was, in America, that's an R1340, R for radial, where the cylinders are arranged radially around the crankcase. 1340 is the number of cubic inches. Very simple.
Very simple. So, a training aircraft?
Advanced training used by as I said, the US Army Air Corps, later the US Army Air Force, because the US Air Force didn't exist until 1957. Also used by the US Navy under the designation SMJ. Some of those Navy aircraft were actually fitted with the rest of them for carrier landing. Absolutely magnificent sight, this B-17 bomb bay doors open. Used around the world, both military and civilian roles. 24 different civilian variants were produced, and 27 military. I mentioned earlier on, this is a very rare example of the type, but 53 of them being built.
Originally used in the Second World War as a preliminary training aircraft, very similar to the Harman that we saw earlier. It taught pilots to fly before moving on to the larger aircraft, including the P-51 Mustang. It's the American equivalent of the Tiger Moth. I always say between them, the Tiger Moth is like having afternoon tea with your ageing aunt, and the Stearman is like going rocking in a nightclub. So today is a beautiful day for walking, not too hot, not too cold. She's wearing a lycra flying suit which does not keep you warm at all. It does not keep you dry when it rains, but it does mean that she's flexible enough within that suit to move around whilst up on the wing of the aircraft out. But the next year he phoned and asked if I would test fly the aeroplane, and this is what we did. So diving up to 130 miles an hour, pulling up over the top, 4G, pulling Lily down into that wing walking rig, over the top. He is slightly weightless, and you can see her waving away against about 130 miles an hour as they pull up again. 4G this time, pushing her down into that wing, and over the top she goes again. That smoke stream trailing behind the aircraft, building speed. And then Mike will then perform a beautiful stall turn. Everything goes still and quiet as the aircraft pivots through 180 degrees, and it's all about the speed again. And as you can see, the speed then trails away as this aircraft unfortunately is not highly aerobatic like the extra 300. That big 450 horsepower engine, and unfortunately the diminutive Vivi causing quite a lot of
roll the aircraft. Previous types utilised wing warping to introduce roll. And this model is a 60% scale model, which was originally built 24 years ago by Roy Salter, and Steve restored it earlier this year. The model now has a single cylinder 160cc 4-stroke engine and a 32-inch scale propeller. Balloon types, look at that, straight up into the sky. A takeoff not dissimilar to the Yak 54 one, a very short takeoff run and then straight airborne. So yes, Zeppelins were used for dropping bombs on London, and then later purpose-built bombers like the Goethe. In fact, I grew up in Potter's Bar in Hertfordshire, where one of the roads near my home, Tempest Avenue, was named after Captain Tempest, who shot down the Zeppelin during the First World War over the town. So, representative of the oldest aircraft type we'll have here today. You can see the skid there in the front to help prevent the aircraft nosing over if the landing didn't go quite right. And a very nice safe landing there as well. Excellent stuff. Not being aerobatic.
And there they go, the 2025 Royal Air Force Parachute Display Team, the Falcons! The red smoke trailing from their legs is created by smoke canisters attached to their boots, which were activated at the very last moment before jumping from the aircraft. We can see all 8 canisters safely deployed as the team immediately begin manoeuvring into the snake formation. For 2025, the team have been working on a dynamic routine over the winter months, and we hope you enjoy the visual spectacle as much as the Falcons enjoy flying it. They have built the snake formation by turning 180 degrees of back up with jump run direction. The team coach is now called for the helix split, with even numbers going right in a controlled turn on the central axis, along with odd numbers going left. The team maintain a constant radius between this manoeuvre, giving the visual effect of a helix strike. Criss-cross. Where they'll pass with closing speeds of 45 miles an hour. They immediately make a turn into the very dynamic and signature carousel. This year is slightly different, with 2 of our flag bearers on the outside flying the Union Jack. This is a great photo opportunity as well. This manoeuvre requires vast amount of concentration and trust in each other, constantly being guided down by the team coach, Flight Sergeant Liam Lyon. The team coach has called to an end for this signature carousel, which is now the final formation of the display before landing today. This is the Sabre Chase. You'll see the team essentially forming another snake, but this time with dynamic left and right turns before positioning themselves into the landing arena today. By Sergeant Liam Lyons, Sergeant Andy Lynch, Sergeant Mike Atkinson, Sergeant Marcus Shields, Sergeant Aaron Oates, Sergeant Greg Appleby, Sergeant Luke Riddle with the Union Jack, and Flight Sergeant, Flight Lieutenant, apologies, Alice Adam Cairns. Everybody please, once again, put your hands together and give a big cheer for a superb display from the 2025 Royal Air Force Parachute Display Team, the Falcons!